Uh-huh.
God damn it. I hate when that happens. Guys, this is a little thing with Freddie Sabelli. I just screwed up and did not record the first 10 minutes of our podcast. So I'm starting over with our very flexible and well mannered Bob Moran from Comedy Gold Secrets. Oh my gosh,
Woo!
sorry.
Thank you,
I
Freddie. Glad to be here.
from previously me screwing up, Bob and I were just talking about him sort of getting into the art of comedy and just getting into arts in general by reading a book. I'll have you say the name of the book because I already forget the title, but
Yeah.
just really we were talking about how Bob got into comedy in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. The book is called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And it's not comedy specific, it's art in general. But not only art in terms of painting or drawing, also just living a more artful, creative life. And yeah, and there one of the things she said is that a person could be blocked, like they could be close, like somebody who maybe wants to write a novel, so they work at a newspaper, right? They're not doing it, but they're close. And one of the things that I was, close to was, watching comedy all the time, really loving watching specials or, YouTube shorts or things. And I said, maybe I'm a blocked comic. And I mentioned it to somebody and they said, oh, if you go to Facebook, there's a list of open mics in Boston. And it was a Wednesday night. I live in Alston. Model Cafe was Wednesday night in Alston. I said, I guess this is a sign, and I walked over and just watched that first time.
What were your feelings like watching it? Were you nervous watching it, knowing that you had a plan to do it?
Yeah. The again, maybe it's not natural, but I didn't feel the kind of fear. I was just really psyched and couldn't wait to get up there,
Yeah.
you know.
Did you
Um,
ever go back and listen? Did you record your first set?
I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah. Yeah. I have them on my YouTube channel.
Have you ever gone back and listened to it? I'm not saying that it was bad by any
Yep.
means. I'm not talking shit,
Right,
but
right.
I'm saying I've gone back and listened to my first set.
Uh-huh.
I had a couple of good jokes, but I do like cringe so bad sometimes
Yeah.
looking at them. Like,
No,
what the hell? Like, oh, I can't do it.
yeah. I haven't gone back. They're there, but it probably would be a good thing for me to do.
Can I also tell you what a psycho I am?
Sure.
I so I actually I haven't really like talked about this, but like probably 3 weeks ago or so at this point, I had a stroke.
A stroke.
Yeah, I was all fucked up. I was in the hospital, and I wasn't feeling great today, so I didn't eat anything, and I took a nap, and I was like starving. So I made my wife. Oh, I love my wife's the best. She knows I like Lipton soup, so she made me soup,
Mm.
and I was like, all right, maybe I can just hide it in a coffee mug so it
Oh
looks like
yeah.
I'm
Uh-huh.
drinking tea. But
Yeah.
I keep trying to sip it, but the noodles keep like congealing
Oh yeah,
and like
yeah.
they're like getting stuck in my beard. So I might
Oh,
as well just
is
like
it
come clean
Lipton's
with it.
chicken
Like
noodle
if
soup?
say it again.
Lipton's chicken noodle soup?
Yeah,
Oh,
yep.
that's classic. I love that.
Ah, the
Yeah, yeah.
best. I love it. So if I
Yeah.
slurp extra loud, I
Yeah.
am an asshole. I will try to mute it if you hear any like through the editing process. But
Okay.
um, yeah.
Uh,
Sorry, I
and-
also lose track of what I'm talking about half the time I'm on a podcast, Bob. So
sure.
always feel free. I always give guests the option of
Uh,
just hitting that end button whenever they want if they think,
mm.
oh, this guy is got something wrong with him.
Yeah. So are you on the mend now? Do you feel like after the stroke,
Yeah,
did
no,
they?
I feel better. It it scared the shit out of me. I got a little kid, and
Mm-hmm.
my wife's actually pregnant right now too.
Mm,
And it was like a mini stroke or like a
mm,
transient stroke,
mm.
and or at least that's what they think. It's been super like a confusing time because they don't really know fully what happened. It was
Mhm.
literally just like somebody hit an off switch. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I like zap. I was pretty much paralyzed on the left side of my body. I
Wow.
couldn't talk. I couldn't move my head. I'm good. I had like a brain MRI, no brain damage or anything like that.
Mm.
So very blessed, very lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
And I just got some neck problems really. So and like it just been kind of working through that. But I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm been back up on stage. I actually, my family was so mad. My wife was mad. She understands, but I got out of this happened on a Tuesday night,
Mm-hmm.
and I got out of the hospital on Friday.
Mm.
And I promised, I was like, all right, I'm gonna take it easy. I'm good. And then like just as I was getting ready, I got a message from a comedy excuse me, Wicked Funny Comedy Club in
Uh-huh.
North Andover, which I'd done a couple of spots there, and the
Mm.
gentleman that runs the show, Chris, he messaged me that a comic that was scheduled that night fell out, and he knew I lived close by. He was like,
Yeah.
"Do you want to come to fill in the spot?" And I just like I couldn't say no. I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, sure thing." I didn't want to tell him I had a stroke because I wanted to be like,
Right.
"I'm not putting this guy on. He's probably all jacked up." But that was actually a big moment for me because
Yeah.
I was gonna actually take some time off
Mm.
and just try to, who knows? Like I say, focus on myself, but
Yeah.
like I don't even know what that means. You know what I mean? I still don't know
Mhm.
what it means. It's just
Mhm.
like, what do you do? It's
Right.
like who knows? You take it day by day. But
Yeah.
I think if I didn't get back on stage that night, I probably would have taken a little bit of time off.
Mm. Mhm.
And I'm so happy I didn't because I've been, getting shows and stuff and
Mm.
feeling at least better about myself getting
Mm.
on stage. Because for the first few days, I couldn't really talk, and I had like I'm still a little self conscious about it because I notice it a little bit here and there. But
Mm.
my sometimes my speech is just like a little bit different. So,
Okay. Yeah.
but the comedy's helping. I feel like it's helping me sort of.
Yeah. No, that's great. I'm glad for you. Getting back on the horse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Scary shit, but whatever. We're not going to talk about me. I want to hear about how about you, Bob. Sorry, that's another thing. I got to work on not going off on tangents. So, of all
Mhm.
your comedy spots that you started since 2023, do you have a favorite?
Spots in terms of locations
Yeah,
or
like a favorite mic that you like to hit up?
yeah, I think well probably it's also probably the number one place is the Point.
Yeah,
And I was there the first time as part of a showcase for the class, that Josh put together a showcase for
yeah,
us up there. That was good. And then I went back another time at one of Cam Morton's open mics. But yeah, it's well, one of the things that I like about it is the fact that it's got like a real audience.
yeah,
Most of the other mics they're other comics. And when I'm there, it feels like actually like a performance.
yeah. It's such a big part of it, as far as I think anyway, in my opinion, growing as a comic. You
Mhm.
start out, you go into mics, you're in front of other comics. So I think there's what's good about that is you got to learn that if you're not making the funny part of the joke the priority, those comics aren't going to pay attention. So like that's
Mhm.
a big part of it. But the other part of it is when you get a real crowd in there that's
Mhm.
either paying or just showing up there if it's a free show to have a good time and they want to laugh,
Mhm.
learning how to flow with that is almost like a completely different kind of skill.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing like getting out there in front of a live crowd. Have you ever what's like the worst you've ever bombed? Have you ever like had just a complete turd where you're like, I don't think I'm
Um,
gonna go back?
the I did one Grand Ten Distillery one
Okay.
Sunday, and it was my first time there. And I think usually I like to go and like recon the place and see it once before I actually
Oh
go there
yeah, of
just to
course.
know where everything is. I don't
Dude,
remember
that
if I
is
did that
how a
or not.
Marine would do
There
comedy.
you go. Right. That's right. Exactly. Who's this guy crawling over by the stage? But yeah. So I mean, always I want to be supportive of the establishment. So I said, "Oh, can I have a beer?" And they don't sell any beer there because it's a whiskey distillery. So
Yeah.
I had a whiskey, and it kind of knocked me on my butt because I'm not a drinker anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that didn't help my set.
The old whiskey set.
The
Yep,
old
that'll do
whiskey
that.
set. John Barleycorn, right?
Yep. Okay. Well, how long was the set? Was it 5 minutes or
It was
10
5
or
minutes. Yeah.
5 minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
Bobbing for a 5 minute set's not too bad.
Right.
bombing for a 10-minute set is way worse.
Yeah, I can imagine.
5 minutes, it's like, oh yeah, I can get out of it. It still sucks. It's like,
Yeah.
that was this past Sunday.
No, this was a while ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
was gonna say, ooh, it's still a fresh thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you sometimes if I bomb, it like sticks with me. I mean, at least until I get back on stage.
Yeah.
You know, I remember one time I had I guess too. You can't. Another comic. Who was it? Did you ever meet Josh Day? Do you know who Josh Day is? The comic.
No, I don't think so.
He told me one time, he was like, you can't really bomb at an open mic. It's an open mic.
Hmm.
So he's like, don't feel so like, because I was talking about like I had just had like a real bad turd at an open mic. You know, he's like, don't feel like, he was just, trying to cheer me up a little bit. And I that did resonate with me a little bit. Like, it's an open mic, everybody's trying new shit. Sometimes it's going to be good, sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm.
The worst is going to a show and having just a heckler in the audience talking. That is the worst. It just
have you had that?
Crazy.
Have you had a heckler?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh wow,
I've had a couple, and I feel like I've handled it okay. Really, just like 2 times specifically, I've had a heckler, and it wasn't so much that they were like, "Oh, like screw you," like nothing specific to me as much as they just kind of were drunk and thought they were part of the show both times. They were just like wouldn't shut up, yelling out punchlines, just stomping all over jokes. I'm like, dude, I would love to just drop kick you off of this stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever see the guy that he was playing? He was I think a musician comic. He had a guitar. And a heckler, he goes to come up on stage. He's like, the guy's heckling, so he's talking, smack to the heckler. And the heckler stands up and he goes to like come up on stage and say something. He goes, if you come up on stage, I'm gonna hit you with this guitar. And the guy just, drunk or just doing it, he goes to come up on stage and the comic just drills him with the guitar. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. I love it. I watch it like maybe once or twice a month just to like make myself feel better.
Wow. Yeah. Like the who is it? The Who? They used to smash their guitars at the end of the set.
Yep. Pete Townsend.
Pete Townsend, right. Yeah. Go Pete Townsend on them.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Bob, so we were talking about a little bit earlier, before I forgot to hit the record button, but you mentioned you were in the Marine Corps. You take sort of like that approach when you're doing comedy. What actually got you to sign up for the military?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, the John Wayne movies were a big deal, and World War II movies in general, and watching the movies and wanting to be, wanting my life to matter, and I thought, well, if I'm a hero, if I'm, and I, love the country and things like that. I was a Boy Scout, so sort of the patriotic, from very young. And then my mom said, we don't have the money. We can't, afford to send you to college. So I talked to my guidance counselor in middle school and she said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a Marine. And she said, oh, you should probably go to college. I said, well, we can't afford it. So she said, well, you can go to the Naval Academy and, they pay for everything.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll go there. So I went to the Naval Academy. So it was essentially like in the Navy for 4 years with the goal that when I graduate, I'll be a lieutenant, in the Marines. That's what I did.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
I love that shit. Like when somebody feels like something very strong, I just love the idea of somebody from an early age feeling something like strongly, and following that. That to me is very inspiring. Whatever it is, like for you, in the military, and I think it's like on another level too. Thank you for your service, and just like feeling grounded in the country in a way. It's just I love that shit.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
I wish when I was a kid I had like convictions. I think about it now. I'm 41. I'm like, why don't I have any convictions? I still feel like sometimes I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah. That's So one of the things I'm doing lately is I call myself a creativity and performance coach. you know.
Oh, nice.
And that's one of the things, because a lot of people, wonder like, what should I do? Or, how do I figure it out and stuff like that. But for me, maybe it's just, personality wise, but I've always sort of liked that sort of having an objective, having something that I'm working towards, and then working towards it, and then, yeah.
Now you said your rank was lieutenant.
Well, the way it works is second lieutenant, which is the gold bar. And then after 2 years, got promoted to first lieutenant. And then later on, I got promoted to captain right before I got out.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So as a captain, how many people did you supervise?
The last duty station was actually up in Maine. And we probably had maybe 120,
Oh,
something like
cool.
that. Yeah.
Hell yeah. I think that's sometimes too like a very underrated thing or like a underestimated thing about whether it's the military or another job where you're in a supervisory position and
Hmm.
like how stressful that can be. You're trying to like what you're doing, like you're saying, how you want to coach people and you want
Hmm.
to be supportive for people.
Yeah.
And especially I would imagine in the military, just I know of it from like a vocational standpoint, but good supervisors are very hard to come by.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
um,
Right.
how do you, when you're trying to maybe coach somebody in a creative space,
Hmm.
do you have a certain approach that you take that's maybe your own, or do you try to get to know that person and sort of more harness what their attributes are?
Yeah, definitely harnessing their attributes, right? And the idea from the Artist's Way book is that, each of us is meant to be a creator, right, of some kind, right? And whether it's a certain type of art or a creative life or a creative marriage or things, but the idea that we are able to pick up on inspirations, right? And the inspirations for each person are unique to them. So, your things that inspire you or it's a certain mix, and it might be similar to Richie Welch or another comic, but it's going to be unique to the individual person. And so for me, part of the thing is asking questions and listening a lot, and sort of, over time, hearing a lot of people, is to try to figure out, oh, it sounds like this, but it's always up to the person, to decide, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, how do you feel that when you're in that relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you're saying, and I could be a little bit off base, but how you're saying, like everybody is their own creator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're there to sort of help, guide them into that creative space. How do you sort of like shepherd somebody off? Because like the goal, I would imagine, isn't to be somebody's like mentor that their entire like at some point you have to sort of like transition them to
Yeah.
being a mentor, right? Or like
Yep.
having that position where they're now also confident enough about themselves where they're
Yeah.
relying on themselves to a degree, and then also maybe sharing that knowledge or doing something what you're saying with um, somebody else starting out. But like, do you have like a certain way that you try to get somebody to now start to be their own creator in a way?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question, and I think part of it, and I do, right, because I don't want the person to be, like you said, bound to me. I mean, part of it is to pass the things. I mean, I think very similar to parenting, right? The idea is to help the child to make their decisions, and then eventually, they launch, and then they're, calling their own shots. So I think it's transitional. I think in the beginning, it's probably laying out some specific things for the person. And then over time, they take more and more of the responsibility about what they're going to be working on or what pace they're going to go at until eventually they're deciding those things for themselves. There are definitely those are transferable skills that a person can learn, and they can be their own person and be their own, like, managing themselves. But one of the best ways is to have them start to mentor somebody else. That's like part of the thing with me is that there's now working with somebody else, and two things happen. One is they're typically afraid they're going to mess the other person up, right?
Yeah.
Like most parents, right? I don't want to mess my kids up. Um, But the other thing is like they'll hear themselves say things and they realize, oh my gosh, I've really picked up a lot along the way. I can't believe I really know that.
Yeah.
And that really does a lot to validate the person, that they've got the competence.
I love that parenting analogy too. It
Yeah.
really is a good analogy, and it very applicable. Do you ever get like empty nest syndrome?
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, I've got 5 kids. I don't know if I told you that, but I've got
Oh no,
five
I didn't know
children.
that.
Yeah, yeah. 18 to 34 years old. So they're all adults now.
Yeah.
But
You're
yeah, I'm
like,
happy
thank
that,
God.
yeah, right. Well, yeah, I'm happy that they're off on their own. Each of them, again, has their own individual like characteristics and, personality, which again is sort of surprising, right? Because the same parents, but they're very different.
Yep.
But yeah, each of them in their own way is sort of navigating, through life, and my role, I think, is to be supportive and an encourager.
That's awesome, man. I bet you're a great dad. That's one of the things I get super nervous about. Not nervous about. Like I feel like I'm a good dad. Like but my son Vincent, he's so young now. He's going to be 3 in August, and he's like, maybe it's because he's a boy, like and like little boys,
Yeah.
they say, are
Yeah, sure.
super hyper. But I'm always nervous. I'm like, am I either letting him get too crazy, or am I being too stern? And should I let him be a little
Yeah.
crazy? So it's like I'm always playing that game with myself, where I'm like, I hope I'm
Mhm.
not screwing this kid up.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm sure you're not. I mean, you've got a good heart, and I just see the way that people gravitate around you when I see the pictures of your different sets. You got family and friends around you, supportive.
Oh yeah, that's
You know, yeah,
again very. I'm not like super religious. So I don't know why I keep using this word, but I do feel very like blessed in that
yeah,
sense
yeah.
too. Where you know I I've got a really great support system. Especially,
Hmm.
coming to shows is like the smallest fraction of it too.
Yeah,
I have
right.
some really great people in my life, and I probably
Hmm.
wouldn't be maybe confident enough to do something like stand up
Yeah.
if I didn't have such a strong support system. My wife's amazing. And even just like a lot of times I'll some of her friends will come to shows, or family, or some of my
Hmm.
family. So just like the luckiest thing ever is just
Yeah.
having
Well, there you
a
go. Well, luck and blessed, right? I think they're a combination of both.
yeah. Yeah, right. You can't be lucky without putting yourself in that situation to get
Right.
that
Yeah,
luck.
yeah, yeah. And I
That's
guess
great.
you're probably an inspiration to a lot of them. Like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that. How do you get up there? And and you're taking the risk and putting yourself out there. And that's
Yeah.
those
It's
are the
funny.
good.
One of the when I first started taking the comedy, that's how I got into stand up. I started with a comedy class first.
Mm,
I had done some open mics before, like the showcase, and a little bit
mm,
before the class started. But that was real. That was my jump into it, was
mm.
comedy class. And when my wife's family heard I was doing it, they like made me. It was Thanksgiving,
Mm.
and it was also at the time, rest in peace, Grandma Margaret, my wife's grandmother, who she passed away this recently, but this is like 4 years ago or so. It was
Mm.
her, I think, 94th birthday,
Wow.
and they were like, "Oh, you got," they're like, her Auntie Laura like made me do a set
At
at
home at
Thanksgiving
Thanksgiving?
at the
Uh-huh.
house for her birthday. And I
Mm.
like didn't want to do it because I'm not a very dirty comic, or I'll occasionally here and there. But when I first started, my set was definitely a little bit dirtier.
Uh-huh. Right.
And but it was the only jokes I had were
Uh-huh.
those.
Yeah.
And I was so peer pressured into doing it. And so I did this semi dirty set in front of my wife's entire family at Thanksgiving.
Mm.
Completely bombed. Like everybody was just staring at me like,
Uh-huh.
who did Jamie marry exactly? And luckily her grandmother was like pretty deaf at the time, so I don't think she heard much of it.
Mm.
But that's another one of those moments that you ever just wake up in the middle of the night and you're like cringing. Like I wake up every once in a while thinking about that set. But
Mm.
some of those people have seen more recent comedy
Yeah.
sets. So
Yeah,
I've,
right.
I've semi redeemed myself, but
There you go.
That was a
Yeah.
tough one.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that the woman Julia Cameron says is that, when we're starting out, we're like a child, right? And we need a lot of encouragement. It's like, the picture that's going to go up on the fridge. It may not even look like a tree, but oh, what a great tree, you know? And one of the traps is to compare our beginning stuff against somebody who's been doing it for years,
Yeah.
right? Because it's an unfair comparison. And the best way is just to compare ourselves to ourselves, over time, you know?
So it's such a trap. I still do it constantly. I try. I
Mm.
am. It's funny you say that 'cause I am conscious about it. I
Mhm.
am aware of it, and I'm aware that I do it. I don't know that I do it any more than anybody else.
Mhm.
I'm sure it's in a book, so a lot of people think it.
That's right.
It's
Sure.
but I am trying to be better about that.
Mhm.
It's so hard sometimes not to compare yourself. When
Mm.
you started out versus now, um, did you sort of start out with that in your mind, like don't compare yourself to, or do you catch yourself sort of doing that at all?
Well, I think, in general, I would always like to do better, be funnier, more laughs per minute, things like that.
Yeah.
But one of the things I did when I was starting out, to try to learn quickly how to do that set in a week was watching YouTube videos by this guy, Jerry Corley, the joke doctor.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, and he had some good things about, how to write a joke and how to put a set together and things. And I just, sort of, by faith, whatever, just follow the instructions. And it was definitely very helpful, you know. And in there he also mentioned about the idea that it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah. No, it's not.
No, it's not. Yeah.
But there's so many factors. It's not like doing a math equation.
Right.
You may have this killer joke that works 9 out of 10 places,
Yeah.
9.5 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Then you go to this one place, you do it, crickets, and that like gets in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's so much more that goes into it than just the
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah. One of the things he says, which I have found, is that if I'm in a good emotional space and I'm having a good time up there, it helps the audience to have a good time too.
Yeah.
And like not being worried, are they laughing or not, but just, and then, saving a joke that falls flat with a little tag, then they can kind of laugh, kind of eases the tension, oh, that worked a lot better in rehearsal, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But not taking myself too seriously.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just think about being the best version of yourself and not worrying
Mhm.
about the other stuff.
Right.
Like if you're the best version of yourself, that's all you can do.
Yep.
You
That's right.
let the chips fall. And usually when you're in that headspace, I feel like it works out.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's fun. I think I specifically wrote that exact phrase down on a piece of paper before I did a comedy competition.
Mm.
And I had, kind of, was putting in the work
Yeah.
leading up to it with the set. And the night before that, I just was like trying to do some positive affirmations and trying to,
Yeah.
um, you know, focus on being a good version of me instead of worried about, because, when you do a comedy competition, the flyers out, you see everybody that's on it and you see like a
Uh-huh.
bunch of really good comics and you're like, like you don't want to lose before you even get there, which can
That's right.
happen. You're like,
Yeah, sure.
you get in your head about how good everybody else is, and you
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
forget about, oh, well, I got to at least be somewhat good, or I wouldn't be on this show in the first
Yeah.
place.
No, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, so for me, the part of the coaching is, and personally for myself, is the positive affirmations, right?
Okay.
Really have taken root, so I make t-shirts with, the words printed backwards. So when I look in the mirror, I can actually read it.
Oh, nice.
So I've got one that I wear every morning, which says "Winners never quit." So I look at it, I say it to myself a few times, and then I write it down. I've got a pad of paper, I write it down every day. But it's really becoming a part of me, you know. And one of the
Awesome.
things after, I don't know, probably a year or more, it dawned on me that, oh, what it says winners never quit. It doesn't say they keep doing the same thing over and over again. So that was sort of like the Marine. I'm just going to keep doing it. it doesn't say that they're like stupid. They're not banging their head against the wall. They just don't quit. And they're
Yeah.
willing to change it and figure out a way that will work.
Do you have a moment that sticks out in your head, whether it was like a set or leading up to it, where you switched up what you were doing in a successful way?
I think so. I think it might have been one of the times at the point, where I was going there and I had my set sort of in mind. I think it was, and there was it was a group there. It was almost like you see on TV, like the Shriners Convention. There was some sort of convention in town.
Like they had a fuzzy hat.
Yeah, they all had the same kind of shirt on, and they were from I think from the Midwest. They were like Swedish or something. And I just told like a Swedish joke, and they really liked it. But that was completely off script. It didn't occur to me, of course, till I got there and I saw that there were all these Swedish guys there.
That's intimidating on its own. You're like, are these Swedish guys gonna get this like
I know, right?
this humor? It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, that freaks me out sometimes too.
yeah.
It's kind of like I don't know why I'm making this analogy, but growing up, I was really into like new metal and mosh pitting and like Deftones, sounded like all these bands. And I went to go see. I had seen the Deftones like a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And I love the mosh pit, going in and out of the mosh pit. And then my buddy and I went to Seattle to see. We're actually going to a Patriots game when they played the Seahawks, and that same weekend, the Deftones were playing like right next door. So we like doubled up.
Yeah.
And I'm like ready to get out there and mosh pit like how it usually is, like in the Northeast. Like it's a little bit more physical. And at the show, it was weird. Like everybody was doing this mosh thing, but it wasn't like how we mosh pit. There was like this weird like leaning thing.
Oh.
I was like, all right, I gotta not mosh pit like this anymore. I'm gonna get kicked out of this show.
Yeah, right.
I don't know why that popped in my head, but
yeah. Well, being adaptable, right? Like reading the room,
reading the room.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's I sometimes too. I'm like, I don't want to read the room. I had this in my mind. Like this is how I want to tell my joke today.
Yeah.
This is what I'm gonna do. And then sometimes it just, why didn't I read the room a little bit better?
Yeah. I think that's part of experience, right? Is knowing when to go off script and when to stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm getting all my flashbacks now of like all these like stupid little things that I've messed up.
Yeah.
Why do you think that those are the things that stick with, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. I feel like I hear a lot of people talking about, why is it that one little bad thing that happened sticks with me versus so much good, so much great. I've had so many great sets in front of people I love, in front of people I've never met, in awesome venues that I didn't think I'd ever get a chance to play or do my set. But I don't think about those. I think about the shitty set I had at Jock's Cabaret on a Sunday night with like 2 people there. Why is that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I have a thought on that.
Oh, let's hear it.
So part of the work that I've been doing, there's something called like the inner family, and there's a part of the mind for many people that's called the critical parent. And the critical parent is that negative voice. And for most of my life, I thought that was just me. I thought that's how I was supposed to be. If I'm critical, then I'm going to be better. But it turns out that there's another way, which is to be loving towards myself. But I think because it's sort of like ingrained that when I do something wrong, it feels like more true. See, that's right. This is what you're really like. This is what you're like, Bob. Who do you think you are? All those sort of accusatory types of things. And it'll wipe out, 9 or 99 good things.
Yeah. That's interesting. So how do you combat that? How do you switch it from the inner parent?
Yeah. So I've actually just written a book on it.
Oh.
So it's called The Trauma Informed Entrepreneur. And it'll apply to trauma informed, comic or artist or, or anybody. But basically, and it doesn't have to be trauma where, somebody's, physically abused necessarily. I mean, that certainly
Yeah.
is trauma, but just neglect and not getting the support and the encouragement can, as a child, is devastating, you know. So there's a couple things that I call it, trauma informed feeling, trauma informed talking, and trauma informed trusting. And a lot of it has to do with writing and journaling. But there's certain ways that a person can journal, which is very helpful to get at sort of those things. So, one of the ones is it's called non-dominant handwriting. And essentially I write to myself and I pass the pen back and forth like I'm having a conversation. And when I do that, old memories will come up. And a lot of times there's a very early, like a first time, when maybe I was, falsely accused of something. And then it happens as an adult and it gets really like intense. Well, it's
Yeah.
because it's referring back to when I was a child that never got kind of resolved or reparented through.
So you work that out through like almost like an inner dialogue, and you're physically writing it like right hand, left hand.
Yeah, physically writing it, right hand, left hand. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And it's amazing where those conversations will go. It's like like literally like stream of consciousness. I had one the other day. What was I doing? Oh, I was upset about something. I was writing and writing and writing, and it basically said, that because we're getting crushed. And oh my God, that reminds me, because when I was a little kid, I was playing at school during recess, and we were playing a game. I don't know if you ever played a game called Kill the Man with a Ball.
I'm sure we were pretty rough. I'm sure I played some
Yeah.
sort of iteration of it.
Yeah. So basically, the guy that's got the ball is running, and whoever's got the ball, you can pile on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was a little kid, but I wanted to play. And the kids were probably 2 or 3 grades above me. And it never dawned on me to drop the ball,
Yeah.
because if I dropped the ball, somebody else would pick it up. And they piled on me, and I literally thought I was going to get crushed. Like I couldn't breathe. They were heavy. I mean, I couldn't, really like scream or anything. And it was such a traumatic experience. But here we go. This something, a few weeks ago, and that's what came to mind. Oh, we're getting crushed.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
So then what I was able to do is able to talk to that younger part, the younger Bob, and say that, this isn't that anymore. We're not actually being crushed. It might feel that way, but we're safe. It's okay. And I'm here to help you. Essentially being my own parent.
How long? I mean, I'm sure everything's a little bit different, but how long does it usually take you to like work through? I'll call an episode. I'm not sure if you have a different name for it, but like how long does it take you to get through an episode like that?
The individual episode, not that long, maybe like a half an hour or so. Like I said, the writing really helps. So part of it's passing the pen back and forth. Sometimes it's just rereading what I wrote, because for me, that was one of the things lacking growing up, was like for somebody to hear me. I didn't feel like I was being heard, or they weren't paying attention. So if I read it back to myself, then, oh, wow, I just read it back word for word. I must have been paying attention, and it feels very nurturing.
Yeah. Do you have, this is probably a stupid question. Are you a righty or a lefty?
I'm a lefty.
You're a lefty. So is your present voice your left hand or your right hand?
But it's a good question. So usually it starts out, the present voice is the normal hand, like the dominant hand.
Yeah.
And then the other hand, which doesn't write as well, right? Because I'm not, right-handed.
Yeah.
It's sloppier and takes longer. But then going back and forth, sometimes after a period of time of doing that, I'll just switch and say, well, this other one's got a lot to say. I'll just make that the dominant hand so I can kind of get through it.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's just, as long as it's back and forth, it doesn't 100% matter, which hand's doing which role.
That's such an interesting way to sort of kind of work through that.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned your book. Is your book is it published? Is it out? Are you in the process of getting
Well, it's sort of in the process of coming out. So what I did is it's actually on the podcast.
Okay.
It starts on episode 7, and then at episode 7, it says where all the other chapters are. So it's, I think, maybe 13 chapters long. They're not that long, but one of the things, like you said earlier, about my podcast being like 20 to 30 minutes, it's small chunks, which I think people can squeeze into their life. So having it as an audiobook, people can listen while they're doing other things, while they're driving or whatever. and they can hear it, and the other thing is I made it an allegory. So it's a story, of this young guy who's seeking, guidance, right? And he ends up finding this guy, the trauma-informed entrepreneur, who guides him into these exercises to help him. So it's biographical, but it's not, about Bob. It's, the seeker, and the trauma-informed entrepreneur. There's characters in the book.
Did you, when you're putting this idea together, did you sort of have this like plan for a long time, or were you just one day like, I use these tools, let me just like spurt it out?
There certainly was like an inspiration that came at some point. And one of the things was there was a book actually a number of years ago, well, many years ago, probably 20 years now, when I was just as actually probably an officer in the Marines, there was a book called The 1 Minute Manager. And it was a little book and it was an allegory, but in there was somebody who wanted to learn how to be a better manager. And that one of the things when they interviewed the author, he said, most people that buy books, they only read the first chapter. So he says, from now on, I'm only writing books that are one chapter long. So it's a thin book. His book was thin, my book is thin, and it's meant to, sort of convey it. But by using the storytelling, it's easier to follow rather than like reading a textbook or a therapy book.
Yeah, a little more, little easier to digest.
Easier to digest, yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's so much a part now of like getting out information, just having it in podcast format, I'm sure is going to make it able to, reach more people, which is essentially that's what it's for. It's to reach people.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. And the other thing is it takes the different things that I do, like with a coaching client, and makes it available to lots of people. Now sometimes that's enough and they get what they needed. Sometimes they do that and then they want to work with me because of what they've heard. Like, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? But it's amazing how free is actually like a great way to get the message out.
Yeah. Like I've noticed too, just recently, so many comics now are like bigger name comics are putting out free specials on YouTube. It's like, what's the real value? Is the value, getting paid X amount of money for somebody to have control over your product? Or is the real value getting it out there to as many people as possible to gain almost like trust with an audience, or gain the audience itself, like, and I'm not saying one's better than the other, because I'm sure it's nice to get a fat check from Netflix or whoever else.
Sure.
That'd be great too. But having those options. And now do you upload on like podcasts, whatever the Apple one is, Spotify, all those things?
Yeah, so it's on. I sort of consider it on Spotify. So when I do the episode, I definitely load it to Spotify. But then after a number of, I don't know, 6 months or 8 months, whatever, there's a way on Spotify where you can connect it to the other platform. So now mine is connected to iHeartRadio and it's connected to Amazon Music. Right. So I just upload to Spotify, but now because they're connected, it automatically gets loaded to the other ones like after a day or two.
Okay. So is that through there? They have like the creators platform or something like that?
On Spotify, through the creators platform. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I gotta look at it. Like, I only put this podcast up on YouTube, and I generate clips and put them up on Instagram and stuff like that. But I really got to look into Spotify. I hear that, just like what you were saying, like that's a really good feature where they can get it out to other entities. And do you do I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember when I was on your show. Do we do video? Or do you do a video portion of it, or is it just audio?
Well, so it's sort of both. So we're able to see each other, like we're seeing each other now.
Yeah.
But then I have the option to upload what I want, and I just upload the audio.
Okay, great.
Particularly because I think that if it's easier because people can then listen to it while they're doing something else.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea is to make it digestible, right? It's only audio and it's only 20 to 30 minutes on purpose, because I can't say many times, here's one on video, I'll just listen to it, and next thing you know, I'm sitting there, I stop whatever I'm doing because I can't tear myself away.
When you started uploading to Spotify, Was that like you said 8 months? Is that a almost like a trial period for them before like they want to see you doing something for that amount of time before you can use that feature?
Nope, it just took me that long to do it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I was just happy that it was going up on Spotify. I would put the link out or post about it on Instagram. And I don't know how many people watch it. I mean, I don't have a lot of followers honestly on Spotify
Yeah,
either,
me
but at
neither.
least if it's up on Amazon, then they could get to it.
Yeah.
Um, and also I want to be able to tell the guests, oh, these are the places where your, episode is going to be, listen, where they can listen to it.
That's great.
And I would do Apple, but Apple, you had to have an image of a certain like what they call DPI, dots per inch, and the image that I made wasn't enough, and it didn't accept it. The cover art,
Yeah.
and that stopped me in my tracks. So if I get that image, then it could be on Apple as well.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got to look into all that stuff, man. I want to start to spread my wings a little bit. It is, more so than any other thing I post online. If I get a subscriber on YouTube for whatever reason, that'll put me in a good mood for like the
Oh,
rest of the
sure.
month.
Yeah, yeah.
If I get a YouTube subscriber, that's like
Uh-huh.
gold to me.
Oh my gosh, there you
It's
go.
the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Same thing. I don't have a ton of follow. I think this page has like 20 followers or something. I get
Uh-huh.
more hits on Instagram with like the clips.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get like maybe a couple of thousand views or
Oh,
if
yeah.
it's like a good, if it's a good clip.
Yeah.
But for YouTube, I think the highest views I've cracked on YouTube are like 58 views or something like that.
Hmm.
I don't know why I pretend like I don't know. It's 58. It's 50. It's
Okay.
definitely 58.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
definitely 58.
Yeah, yeah. We're all friends here.
I actually look every day to see if it goes to 58.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But yeah, I like listening to short clips. There's something, about having a long interview
Mm.
that I enjoy. More so, I probably should be thinking more about do people want to watch and what, like we were
Mm.
saying, like more digestible for an audience. Because to really be sustainable, you need people to do it. Because like
Mm-hmm.
you want this to accumulate to something. But
Yeah.
something about doing a little bit of a longer interview, I liked because it's usually like friends or people that I meet through the comedy world that I want to like get to know a little bit. And,
Mm-hmm.
I find myself dragging on sometimes. And
Uh-huh.
I've been super lucky. I befriended a couple of um, like fighters over the years. Just like when I played college football, and one of
Hmm.
my old teammates became a professional fighter. So I had him on.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I sort of like bug some people that he knew to be
Yeah,
on
there
and
you
so
go.
on. So, I find a lot of similarities between like fighters and comics, and probably a little bit too with, similarities with, like how you're saying, your drive, like in the Marine Corps, like there is like this loner mentality, but you need
Mm.
to like bring it together to a bigger community. I
Yeah,
just love hearing
absolutely.
about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right? Joe Rogan, right? He's a fighter, right? And
Yeah.
a comic and a podcaster, right?
Yeah.
So he's got that triumvirate as well.
Oh yeah. And that's definitely like been an inspiration for me. I listen to, I don't listen to as many podcasts
Hmm.
as much just because like, I'm working or I got the
Yeah.
kid or I'm trying to get to a comedy show. And then where I'd be normally listening to a podcast, I'm listening to my comedy set to try to
Yeah.
tweak some stuff. So
Hmm.
usually when I'm listening to a podcast now, it's maybe on like a Sunday morning before,
Hmm.
I have to start doing like grown up stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, definitely like the Joe Rogan podcast for sure. Like
yeah.
that was a big inspiration. I was always a big um, Opie and Anthony fan. Are you from the Northeast?
I'm from New Jersey.
From
Yeah.
Jersey? Okay. I don't know if Opie and Anthony were they in Jersey? Were they on K
They
Rock?
might have been. I've definitely heard more about them since I've been up here.
Okay. Yeah, they were like big. It was always like them or Howard Stern was like who you listened
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
I was always big into them, and I liked Howard Stern as well.
Hmm.
Just curious, what part of New Jersey are you from?
So it's the central part. It's Middlesex County.
Okay.
The town is Piscataway. It's near New Brunswick and Rutgers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I dated a girl from Glen Ridge, New Jersey.
Oh yeah, Glenridge
So
up in there.
a little bit northern. And I used to take the do you remember Fenghua transportation?
No.
Okay. This is the shadiest thing ever. It was great. I loved it.
Uh-huh.
I was, a broke college kid, so it was all I could afford. But at the time, for $15, you could get a round trip ticket from Chinatown in Boston
Hmm.
to Chinatown in New York.
Yeah, yeah.
The bus ran every hour. It
Uh-huh.
was just it was wild, man. It was a
Yeah.
wild time. But it was great. You could afford it. And then I would
Yeah.
take the New Jersey Transit, down, to Glen Ridge Station or whatever. But
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
great times in New Jersey. I
Yeah.
loved it.
I lived in Philadelphia for a while, and I would call it the Chinese bus. It might have been Fenghua, but
Yeah,
just the
I'm sure
Chinese
it's the
bus.
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Chinatown to Chinatown,
Yeah.
And yeah, people around there, they're eating, and it's like another world.
Yeah. Philly's a great town too. The school that I work at, we also have another school in Berwyn, Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
And so I'll sometimes go down there to, for trainings or help train staff.
Yeah.
And I'll drive down there. I love to drive, but a couple times I've been lucky enough where I've had a little bit of extra time, or like maybe I did that training that day and I'm leaving the next morning. So I've done some open mics in Philly
Oh, there you
and
go.
I love
Wow.
it, man. It was great. I
Yeah.
did this one bar is called, I think, Friendlies or Friends or something like that.
Uh,
And it's one of the only bars left that you can still smoke inside.
oh,
And
wow.
I don't smoke cigarettes, but I was like, oh, whatever, I don't care. And I forgot how brutal it is because I left because everybody in there is smoking cigarettes, like
Yeah, yeah.
everybody. I had to throw out my clothes after I left. I was like, this is
Wow.
it, like just stuck
Yeah.
on me. I felt it was in my skin for like
Yeah.
2 days. I was sick to my stomach. Ugh.
Hmm.
That's probably why I had a stroke.
Might have been. Yeah.
Have you gone outside of Massachusetts to do comedy?
Um, Not yet, but I'd like to. Yeah.
You,
So a
you
couple of my kids are up in Maine. Oh, what? Yeah, one time. The only one I did outside was I did the Portland, the open mic part of the Portland Comedy Festival. But it was an open mic. It wasn't like a performance. It was a 5-minute open mic.
okay?
Yeah.
How was that? The what you said, the Portland Comedy Festival?
Portland Comedy Festival. Yep.
I've heard cool things about that one too.
Yep. And apparently, my friend that's up in Maine now sent me the information about it. I guess it's coming up again.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I might try to submit for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I have like very bad luck, or maybe not luck. Maybe I'm just got to get better. But I feel like I submit to a lot of festivals and
Mm.
contests and stuff like that. And I never seem to quite make the cut. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that taking into consideration just like the little bit of wisdom you shared too, like, okay, like winners never quit, but that doesn't mean they don't do something else. So I'm like,
Yeah.
now I'm
Yeah.
thinking, like, what do I got to change up a little bit to make myself a little bit more appealing for those things?
Mm-hmm. I just got turned down for the World Series of comedy.
Oh, nice. Where was that?
They've got like 8 satellites. The finals are in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
I submitted for Wisconsin.
Okay. What
And
made you submit for Wisconsin?
I know somebody in Wisconsin,
Okay.
and I thought I could stay with him
Yeah.
if I got accepted. So I just put the feeler out today. If I get accepted, can I stay? He goes, oh sure, and he actually knows the owner of the club. You know,
Oh, you're like, come on, dude, put in a good word for
yeah.
me, man.
That's just the venue though. It was actually the World Series of Comedy, or the judges, or the reviewers, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Dude, it sucks getting turned down. I hate it. But it's
yeah,
if you don't put yourself out there, then you're never gonna get accepted.
yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think one of the things, like to your point about how to get better, or increase like the acceptance rate. I think it's working with other comics, right, and tightening up the jokes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I've been trying to do a little bit. I have been trying to do a little bit about my stroke when I was in the hospital.
Oh,
I'm like,
mhm,
I feel like most of my jokes are not that they're not like um they're not exactly one-liner jokes, but they're kind of short and like silly,
mm,
more like dad humor stuff. And I want to start to put a little bit more of myself in it.
mm,
There is little bits of myself even in those one-liners, but
mhm,
not necessarily that somebody would know,
oh,
just
mhm,
listen to it. It's like, like anything, you're inspired by something and
yeah,
you write a little joke about it, but I'm trying to do a little bit more about, the stroke for whatever reason, but it's been
mhm,
kind of working. I just gotta get a
mhm,
couple more like punches in there, I think.
yeah,
But I enjoy sort of like the shift to talking about something a little bit more personal.
yeah, yeah. I recently started to work on two sort of like topics. One is the grocery store, right? And all the different things that are irritating about it, but like in a funny way. So
Yeah.
quite a bit about like the self checkout, the machine and stuff like that. And then this morning at Joke Zoom, I was talking about like the produce department. But just and the nice thing about the workshopping is when I bring it up, I'll say, anybody else have experiences, and people will relate their experiences. Oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah, uh,
Yeah.
yeah. When I see um, buy one get one free in produce, I know what that means. That means it's about to go bad like any second now. Yeah, because I would buy like that thinking I got a good deal. Next thing you know, it's rotten in the fridge.
Yep.
You
Like,
know,
don't order the meatloaf. That's not the fresh meat.
yeah, there you go. Right, things like that. But so one of the guys, have you ever heard of Greg Warren, the comedian?
That sounds kind of familiar.
He's got this thing where he does, I don't know, like 20 minutes about peanut butter. Have you
I don't
heard
think I've
that?
heard it.
Yeah, he apparently used to work for Jif. Um, but that's like Jim Gaffigan. These guys do long types of things about one particular topic,
Yeah.
as opposed to like joke, 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 joke. It's sort of like thematic. So I'm hoping that's one of my hopes with this, grocery store thing is I can have a longer thing, where I sort of stay on
Yeah.
the topic and really explore it.
Breaking down a topic as opposed to sort of jumping around a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
Um, Bob, before we get my lights are actually dying. I
Uh-huh.
But before we sort of wrap things up, do you have any um either upcoming shows you want to plug, or maybe if you want to also plug exactly where we can find your podcast and book information?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. So one of the big things that I'm plugging these days is the television show, and essentially it's turning into like a television like open mic.
Yeah.
And Richie came the other day, and Jamie Warner came, and this guy John Applefield. Um, Time before that, Jason Fishman came. But part of the thing is to make it a platform where comics can get a chance in front of a camera and a studio audience.
Yeah.
So if people are listening and they're comics, you can reach me at comedygoldSecrets@gmail.com. And then it's always the first and third Tuesday. They just put in the date that they want to get on, and essentially you're signing up, via email.
And that's such a great thing too, getting out in front of a camera, getting into like a studio setting.
Mm-hmm.
It's good experience, but it's also like that's why we do it. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm just speaking for myself. That's like the dream. Like
Yeah.
you wanna be on TV telling a joke that makes a bunch of people laugh.
Yeah.
So even on a uh, excuse me, not necessarily like a nationally televised scale, but even on any scale, like that's so
Yeah.
valuable. It's so
Yeah.
valuable to have.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the thing is, again, this idea of positive affirmations and visioning is I want, for myself to envision being there, like on the Tonight Show or, Johnny Carson. And this is a smaller scale. It's doable, right? And I can have people at all different skill levels, but it can be their first time on, you know,
Yeah.
and, making it a platform to help people, realize the vision and get pumped up. There's, do you know Alvaro Mendoza?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, he was on this most recent one. He said, "Oh
Oh,
my
no.
gosh," he said, "I can't believe this," and we have the people come out from behind a curtain like Johnny Carson, and then we do an interview at the end, of each comic. But yeah, just like the minor leagues, it's like preparing for the show, getting ready for the big time.
Yeah, I gotta figure it out. I'm gonna find out. It's Tuesdays, right? Tuesdays at 5,
Tuesdays, yeah, first and third Tuesday. Yep.
and it's at 5 o'clock.
It's at 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Five
Part of
o'clock.
that is because the people that work there, the station closes at 6, but they're having a change of personnel. It
Yeah.
may be possible to have the show later. But then the other thing I want to do is to get one of the remote cameras and go out to open mics, and meet people there.
Yeah.
And then, having a chance to be on TV.
Hell yeah. I promise you, I am gonna make it to one of those, even if it's just as an audience member. I'm
There you
going
go.
to one of those shows.
Yeah. And if there's like, Thanksgiving holiday or some reason you're off on a Tuesday, when the time's right, I'm sure it'll happen.
And your podcast is Comedy Gold Secrets on YouTube.
Well, actually, the TV show is Comedy Gold Secrets. And the Instagram, so it's Instagram and YouTube for that. That the podcast is actually called the Innovate, Thrive, Create podcast.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So it's broader than just comedy. It's any sort of innovation or creativity. That's on Spotify, and I can send you the link. So if you put them in the show notes, people can hop on there that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, Bob, this is such a great conversation. I'm so happy
I
that
agree.
we're able to connect and kind of have now sort of conjoining podcasts. We're both on each other's podcasts.
There you go. That's right. That's one hand washing the other, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I love this.
I had such a great time talking to you, and I feel like I learned a lot. I if I don't walk away from a podcast or episode feeling like I didn't learn a little bit about somebody else, I don't feel like it's a success.
Mm-hmm.
But I will, and I really truly mean this. I learned a lot about you today. I feel like I learned a little bit about myself too. So I really appreciate you coming on, doing the show, and just overall being a great dude, man.
Yeah, thanks, Freddie. And you're a good host. I really appreciate the way you led the conversation.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, please check out. I'm going to put Bob's stuff in the show descriptions, and I'll tag it. I don't think I can do it on when I post it, but I'll do it on like the Instagram stories and stuff like that, so people can check it out. And again, this has been a little dig with Fred Sibeli and Bob Moran, and I hope everybody enjoyed the show.
Yeah, you love it. Thanks, Freddie.
Yeah. Bob, dude, thank you so much, man, for coming on. I appreciate
my pleasure.
it. Man.
Thank you.
I had a great time. I'll make sure I put all that stuff up, and I'll tell you. Usually, probably, I'll get a chance to because I'm gonna edit, my top camera with the Zoom recording. So I'll probably have that done by maybe like Thursday or Friday or something. I have another. I'm talking to a boxer, this guy Brandon, on Friday. So my goal is to have it done before that episode, so I'm not backlogged and whatnot.
There you go. Right.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, and I hope you have I'll see you around. I got to try to get out to Margaritaville or the Point, but I'm sure I'll see you around, brother.
Sure will. Thanks, Freddie.
Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.